Question 1. The audit findings indicate a potential security vulnerability within the IBM FileNet Content Manager v5, one environment that could expose sensitive customer data. The audit report recommends immediate remediation to prevent unauthorized access. What is the most appropriate course of action to address this finding in compliance with U.S. regulatory frameworks? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment to understand the vulnerability impact, consult with legal and compliance teams, and develop a phased remediation plan that includes testing before full deployment. Option B. Immediately shut down all FileNet Content Manager services until a permanent fix can be identified and implemented to ensure no data is compromised. Option C. Apply a generic security patch provided by the vendor without testing its compatibility with the existing FileNet configuration to expedite the remediation process. Option D. Defer any remediation efforts until the next scheduled system maintenance window to minimize immediate operational disruption. Correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment to understand the vulnerability impact, consult with legal and compliance teams, and develop a phased remediation plan that includes testing before full deployment. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in enterprise content management, where the integrity and accessibility of critical business records are at stake due to potential system vulnerabilities. The audit findings highlight a gap in the current security posture, requiring a decisive and compliant response. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need to address the vulnerability with the long-term implications for data governance, system stability, and regulatory adherence. A rushed or ill-considered decision could lead to data loss, compliance violations, or operational disruption. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes a systematic, risk-based methodology aligned with IBM FileNet Content Manager v5 on best practices and relevant U.S. regulatory frameworks governing data security and record retention. This involves a thorough assessment of the vulnerability impact, consultation with relevant stakeholders, including legal, compliance, and IT security, and the development of a phased remediation plan. This approach ensures that the solution is not only technically sound, but also legally defensible and minimizes business disruption. It adheres to principles of due diligence and prudent risk management, which are implicitly or explicitly mandated by regulations such as HIPAA for healthcare data, SOX for financial reporting, and general data privacy laws that require reasonable security measures to protect sensitive information. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing an immediate, broad-scale system shutdown without a proper impact assessment and remediation plan is a regulatory and ethical failure. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and could lead to business operations being halted unnecessarily, potentially violating service-level agreements and causing significant financial loss. Furthermore, it bypasses established change management and incident response protocols, which are often mandated by compliance frameworks. Applying a generic patch without testing its compatibility with the FileNet environment and its specific configurations is another failure. This could introduce new system instability or data corruption issues, jeopardizing data integrity and potentially leading to compliance breaches if critical records become inaccessible or are altered incorrectly. It neglects the principle of maintaining system integrity and data accuracy, which is fundamental to many regulatory requirements. Ignoring the audit findings and deferring action indefinitely is a direct violation of regulatory obligations to maintain secure and compliant systems. This passive approach exposes the organization to significant risks, including data breaches, legal penalties, and reputational damage. It demonstrates a failure to uphold the organization's responsibility to protect sensitive information and maintain accurate records, which are core tenets of most data governance and security regulations. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such situations should employ a structured decision-making framework that includes 1. Information gathering. Thoroughly understand the audit findings, the nature of the vulnerability, and its potential impact. 2. Risk assessment. Quantify the potential risks associated with the vulnerability, e.g., data breach, operational disruption, compliance violation. 3. Stakeholder consultation. Engage with legal, compliance, IT security, and business unit leaders to gather diverse perspectives and ensure alignment. 4. Solution evaluation. Explore and evaluate potential remediation strategies, considering technical feasibility, cost, impact on operations and compliance implications. 5. Phased implementation. Develop and execute a plan that prioritizes critical fixes, includes testing, and minimizes disruption. 6. Documentation and review. Maintain detailed records of the decision-making process, actions taken, and outcomes, and conduct post-implementation reviews. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are informed, defensible, and aligned with both business objectives and regulatory requirements. Question 2. Regulatory review indicates that the organization is subject to specific data retention and audit trail requirements mandated by specify a relevant U.S. regulatory framework, e.g., SEC Rule 17A4 for financial services, or HIPAA for healthcare, when implementing IBM FileNet Content Manager v5. 1. What is the most critical step in the impact assessment process to ensure ongoing compliance with these regulations? Option A. Thoroughly documenting how FileNet's audit logging features can be configured to capture all relevant system events and user actions, and verifying that the system's retention policies can be precisely set to meet the mandated retention periods for different content types. Option B. Evaluating the system's scalability and performance metrics to ensure it can handle the projected volume of content and user access without degradation. Option C. Assessing the user interface and ease of use of FileNet to maximize end-user adoption and minimize training costs. Option D. Researching general best practices for enterprise content management systems and applying them to the FileNet implementation. The correct answer is A. Thoroughly documenting how FileNet's audit logging features can be configured to capture all relevant system events and user actions, and verifying that the system's retention policies can be precisely set to meet the mandated retention periods for different content types. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT governance or a new system implementation. IBM FileNet Content Manager v5. 1. Must be assessed for its impact on existing regulatory compliance obligations. The professional challenge lies in accurately identifying and quantifying the potential risks and benefits of the new system in relation to specific, often complex, regulatory requirements. A failure to conduct a thorough impact assessment can lead to non-compliance, significant financial penalties, reputational damage, and operational disruptions. The need for careful judgment arises from balancing the technical capabilities of FileNet with the nuanced interpretations and enforcement of relevant regulations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic and comprehensive review of the IBM FileNet Content Manager v5, one's features and functionalities against the specific regulatory framework applicable to the organization's operations. This includes identifying how the system will store, manage, retrieve, and secure content, and then mapping these processes to regulatory mandates such as data retention policies, privacy requirements, e.g., PII handling, audit trail capabilities, and disaster recovery provisions. The assessment should involve stakeholders from legal, compliance, IT, and business units to ensure all perspectives are considered. This methodical approach ensures that potential compliance gaps are identified proactively, allowing for remediation strategies to be developed and implemented before deployment, thereby upholding regulatory adherence and minimizing risk. Incorrect approaches analysis. An approach that focuses solely on the technical capabilities of IBM FileNet Content Manager v5. 1. Without cross-referencing specific regulatory requirements is professionally unacceptable. This oversight fails to address the core purpose of the impact assessment, which is to ensure compliance. It represents a significant regulatory failure by neglecting the legal obligations that govern content management. Another incorrect approach is to rely on generic industry best practices for content management without validating them against the organization's specific regulatory jurisdiction. While best practices are valuable, they do not supersede legally mandated requirements. This approach risks non-compliance if the best practices do not fully align with the specific stipulations of the applicable regulations, leading to ethical and legal breaches. Finally, an approach that delegates the entire impact assessment to the IT department without involving legal and compliance experts is also professionally flawed. IT professionals may not possess the specialized knowledge of regulatory nuances and legal interpretations required for a comprehensive compliance assessment. This division of responsibility creates a significant regulatory and ethical failure, as it outsources critical compliance oversight to individuals who may not be adequately equipped to ensure adherence to all legal mandates. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a scenario should adopt a structured, risk-based approach. First, clearly identify all applicable regulatory frameworks and specific mandates relevant to content management within their jurisdiction. Second, thoroughly understand the functionalities and limitations of the IBM FileNet Content Manager v5.1 system. Third, conduct a detailed mapping exercise, comparing system capabilities against each regulatory requirement. Fourth, engage cross-functional teams, including legal and compliance, to validate findings and identify potential risks. Fifth, develop and implement a remediation plan for any identified gaps. This systematic process ensures that the implementation of new technology aligns with, rather than compromises, regulatory obligations. Question 3. The efficiency study reveals that the current implementation of IBM FileNet Content Manager v5.1 is experiencing performance degradation, leading to increased processing times for critical business workflows. Which of the following approaches best addresses this situation while adhering to impact assessment principles? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that evaluates the proposed performance tuning solutions against system stability, data integrity, user experience, and potential regulatory compliance implications before implementation. Option B. Prioritize the implementation of a solution that promises the quickest performance gains, deferring any detailed assessment of broader system impacts to a later date. Option C. Rely on the subjective feedback of a few senior users who have experienced the performance issues to guide the selection and implementation of a fix. Option D. Immediately implement the most cost-effective performance tuning solution identified by the IT team, assuming it will resolve the issue without further analysis. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that evaluates the proposed performance tuning solutions against system stability, data integrity, user experience, and potential regulatory compliance implications before implementation. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals that the current implementation of IBM FileNet Content Manager v5.1 is experiencing performance degradation, leading to increased processing times for critical business workflows. This scenario is professionally challenging because it directly impacts operational efficiency and potentially regulatory compliance if document processing deadlines are missed. The challenge lies in identifying the root cause of the performance issues and implementing a solution that not only resolves the immediate problem, but also adheres to the principles of impact assessment, ensuring that any changes are thoroughly evaluated before deployment. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it systematically analyzes the potential consequences of proposed changes on the existing system and business processes. This aligns with the core tenets of impact assessment, which mandate a proactive and comprehensive evaluation of how modifications will affect system performance, user experience, data integrity, and adherence to relevant regulations. By considering all these facets, the organization can make informed decisions, mitigate risks, and ensure that the implemented solution is effective, sustainable, and compliant. This methodical approach minimizes the likelihood of introducing new problems or violating established guidelines. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate performance tuning without considering broader system implications is professionally unacceptable. This failure represents a significant regulatory and ethical lapse because it bypasses the due diligence required by impact assessment. Specifically, it risks violating guidelines that mandate the evaluation of changes for their potential to disrupt business operations or compromise data security and privacy. Such a narrow focus can lead to unintended consequences, such as introducing new vulnerabilities, impacting other integrated systems, or failing to meet service-level agreements, SLAs, that are often tied to regulatory requirements. Furthermore, it demonstrates a lack of professional responsibility by not thoroughly understanding and managing the risks associated with system modifications. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes cost savings over a thorough impact analysis is also professionally unacceptable. This approach demonstrates a disregard for the principles of responsible system management and can lead to regulatory failures. By cutting corners on impact assessment, the organization may overlook critical dependencies or potential negative outcomes that could result in noncompliance with data retention policies, audit trail integrity, or other regulatory mandates. Ethically, it represents a failure to act in the best interest of the organization and its stakeholders by prioritizing short-term financial gains over long-term stability and compliance. A third incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or the opinions of a few individuals without a structured assessment is professionally unsound. This method lacks the rigor required for effective impact assessment and can lead to significant regulatory and ethical breaches. It fails to provide objective data and analysis, making it impossible to accurately predict the consequences of changes. This can result in decisions that inadvertently violate regulations related to system change control, risk management, or the maintenance of a secure and reliable information system. Professionally, it signifies a departure from evidence-based decision-making and a failure to uphold the standards of due diligence expected in IT management. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve establishing a clear impact assessment framework. This framework should define the scope of assessment, identify key stakeholders, outline the methodologies for evaluating technical, operational, and business impacts, and establish criteria for approving or rejecting proposed changes. Professionals should prioritize understanding the regulatory landscape relevant to their industry and the specific functionalities of IBM FileNet Content Manager v5. 1. They must then apply a structured, data-driven approach to assess potential changes, ensuring that all risks are identified, evaluated, and mitigated before implementation. This includes documenting the assessment process and its outcomes to demonstrate due diligence and compliance. Question 4. Stakeholder feedback indicates a strong desire to upgrade to IBM FileNet Content Manager v5, one to leverage its enhanced features, but there are also concerns about potential disruption to critical business workflows and data archiving processes. Which approach to assessing the impact of this upgrade best aligns with professional best practices and regulatory considerations? Option A. Proceed with the upgrade based solely on the IT department's technical assessment, assuming that any business impacts will be minor and can be addressed reactively post-implementation. Option B. Limit the impact assessment to the technical infrastructure and software compatibility of IBM FileNet Content Manager v5. 1. Focusing on server requirements and database integration without considering the broader business implications. Option C. Prioritize the upgrade's technical implementation to quickly realize the benefits of new features, deferring any detailed assessment of business process or user experience impacts until after the system is live. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that systematically identifies all affected business processes, user groups, and technical components, quantifies potential impacts, and involves extensive stakeholder engagement to validate findings and develop mitigation strategies. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that systematically identifies all affected business processes, user groups, and technical components, quantifies potential impacts, and involves extensive stakeholder engagement to validate findings and develop mitigation strategies. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT project management or a critical system upgrade. IBM FileNet Content Manager v5. 1. Is planned. The challenge lies in balancing the need for system modernization with the potential disruption to business operations and the need to comply with existing data governance policies. Stakeholder feedback, often a mix of enthusiasm for new features and apprehension about change, requires careful interpretation and a structured approach to impact assessment to ensure all concerns are addressed and risks are mitigated. The inherent complexity of a content management system upgrade, which can affect document workflows, access controls, and long-term archiving, necessitates a thorough and systematic evaluation. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that systematically identifies all affected business processes, user groups, and technical components. This assessment must then quantify the potential impact in terms of downtime, data integrity risks, security vulnerabilities, and operational efficiency. Crucially, it requires engaging with all relevant stakeholders, including IT operations, business unit representatives, compliance officers, and end users, to gather their perspectives and validate findings. The output of this assessment should be a detailed report outlining the scope of the impact, proposed mitigation strategies, and a clear recommendation for the upgrade's feasibility and timeline. This aligns with best practices for change management and risk management, ensuring that decisions are data-driven and that potential negative consequences are proactively addressed, thereby safeguarding business continuity and regulatory compliance. Incorrect approaches analysis. Proceeding with the upgrade based solely on IT department recommendations without a formal, documented impact assessment is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach neglects the critical need for business validation and stakeholder buy-in, potentially leading to unforeseen operational disruptions and non-compliance with data handling policies. It bypasses due diligence, which is a cornerstone of responsible IT governance. Implementing the upgrade immediately to leverage new features without a thorough assessment of downstream effects on existing workflows and data retention policies is also professionally unacceptable. This reactive approach prioritizes technological advancement over operational stability and compliance, risking data loss, security breaches, or violations of data privacy regulations. Focusing the impact assessment exclusively on the technical aspects of the IBM FileNet Content Manager v5. One upgrade, such as server performance and database compatibility, while ignoring the business process and user experience implications, is another failure. This narrow focus overlooks how the system is actually used and the critical dependencies that exist within business operations, can lead to a technically sound but functionally unusable system, causing significant business disruption and potentially violating service-level agreements or internal governance standards. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured, risk-based approach to impact assessment. This involves 1. Defining the scope of the change and its objectives. 2. Identifying all potential impacts across technical, operational, business, and compliance domains. 3. Engaging all relevant stakeholders to gather input and validate findings. 4. Quantifying the severity and likelihood of identified impacts. 5. Developing comprehensive mitigation and contingency plans. 6. Documenting the entire process and its outcomes for auditability and future reference. This systematic process ensures that decisions are informed, risks are managed, and the organization's operational integrity and regulatory standing are protected. Question 5. Implementation of a FileNet Content Manager v5. One upgrade requires a thorough impact assessment, which approach best ensures that all regulatory and audit trail requirements are maintained throughout the upgrade process. Option A. Perform a limited impact assessment focused only on core content access, assuming that metadata, security, and retention policies will remain unaffected by the upgrade. Option B. Prioritize the technical migration of content files, deferring the detailed assessment of metadata, security, and retention policies until after the upgrade is fully deployed. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive phased impact assessment that meticulously documents and validates content, metadata, security, and retention policies, ensuring their integrity post-upgrade. Option D. Rely on the default upgrade settings to preserve existing configurations and audit trails, performing a high-level technical review post-completion. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive, phased impact assessment that meticulously documents and validates content, metadata, security, and retention policies, ensuring their integrity post-upgrade. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in enterprise content management projects, balancing the need for robust data integrity and auditability with the practicalities of system upgrades and potential data migration. The professional challenge lies in ensuring that the chosen impact assessment approach adequately addresses the regulatory compliance requirements of IBM FileNet Content Manager v5. 1. Specifically concerning data retention, audit trails, and potential legal discovery obligations, without introducing undue risk or cost. The need for careful judgment arises from the potential for data loss, compliance violations, or operational disruption if the impact assessment is incomplete or flawed. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a comprehensive, phased impact assessment that meticulously documents the current state of content, its associated metadata, security configurations, and retention policies within FileNet Content Manager v5. 1. This approach involves detailed analysis of how the upgrade will affect these critical elements, including potential data transformation, metadata mapping, and the integrity of audit logs. It prioritizes validation and testing at each stage, ensuring that compliance requirements, such as those mandated by data privacy regulations E.g. GDPR if applicable to the jurisdiction, or equivalent U.S. regulations like HIPAA for healthcare data, or SOX for financial data, depending on the exam's implied jurisdiction, are maintained. This includes verifying that audit trails remain intact and accessible for legal discovery and regulatory audits, and that retention schedules are correctly applied post-upgrade. This methodology represents best professional practice because it proactively identifies and mitigates risks, ensuring business continuity and adherence to legal and regulatory obligations. Incorrect approach is analysis, an approach that focuses solely on the technical migration of content files without a thorough assessment of metadata, security, and retention policies is professionally unacceptable. This failure would likely lead to a loss of critical audit information, incorrect application of retention schedules, and potential noncompliance with data governance mandates. It bypasses the essential step of understanding how FileNet's inherent features, which support compliance, are affected by the upgrade. Another incorrect approach would be to assume that default upgrade settings will preserve all compliance-related configurations. This assumption is dangerous, as it neglects the specific nuances of the existing FileNet environment and the potential for configuration drift or incompatibilities introduced by the upgrade. It fails to account for custom configurations or specific regulatory requirements that might not be covered by standard upgrade paths, leading to potential breaches of data integrity and auditability. A third incorrect approach is to defer the detailed impact assessment until after the upgrade is completed. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It introduces a high risk of discovering compliance gaps or data integrity issues post-implementation, which can be far more costly and difficult to rectify. It also demonstrates a lack of due diligence and proactive risk management, which are fundamental professional responsibilities in managing regulated content systems. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured risk-based approach to impact assessment for content management system upgrades. This involves 1. Defining the scope. Clearly identify all components and functionalities of FileNet Content Manager v5, one that will be affected by the upgrade. 2. Documenting the current state. Thoroughly record existing configurations, data structures, metadata, security settings, and retention policies. 3. Analyzing potential impacts. Systematically evaluate how the upgrade will alter each documented element, paying close attention to compliance-relevant aspects. 4. Developing mitigation strategies. Plan for how to address any identified risks or negative impacts, including data validation, reconfiguration, and testing. 5. Phased implementation and validation. Execute the upgrade in stages, with rigorous testing and validation at each step to confirm that compliance requirements are met. 6. Post-upgrade verification. Conduct final checks to ensure the system is operating as expected and all regulatory obligations are satisfied. This systematic process ensures that all critical aspects, especially those related to regulatory compliance and data integrity, are considered and addressed proactively, minimizing risk and ensuring successful, compliant system operation. Question 6. Stakeholder feedback indicates significant apprehension regarding the planned upgrade of IBM FileNet Content Manager v5. 1. With concerns ranging from potential data corruption to disruption of critical business workflows and perceived risks to regulatory compliance. Which of the following is the most appropriate initial step to address these concerns and ensure a successful, compliant upgrade? Option A. Immediately halt the upgrade process and initiate a comprehensive review of the existing FileNet infrastructure to identify any underlying issues that might be fueling stakeholder anxiety. Option B. Conduct a formal impact assessment that systematically evaluates the technical, operational, and regulatory implications of the upgrade, engaging relevant stakeholders in the process. Option C. Proceed with the upgrade as scheduled, focusing on technical execution and providing post-upgrade support to address any issues that arise, assuming stakeholder concerns are primarily based on resistance to change. Option D. Prioritize addressing the most vocal stakeholder concerns by implementing immediate, albeit potentially ad hoc, modifications to the upgrade plan to appease their immediate anxieties. The correct answer is A. Immediately halt the upgrade process and initiate a comprehensive review of the existing FileNet infrastructure to identify any underlying issues that might be fueling stakeholder anxiety. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT project management where a critical system upgrade, IBM FileNet Content Manager v5.1, is planned. The challenge lies in balancing the need for system modernization with the potential disruption to business operations and the need to comply with data governance and retention policies. Stakeholder feedback, often driven by immediate operational concerns or perceived risks, can sometimes conflict with the long-term strategic benefits and compliance requirements of a system upgrade. The professional challenge is to synthesize this feedback, assess its impact objectively, and propose a course of action that aligns with both business needs and regulatory obligations without causing undue alarm or resistance. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves conducting a comprehensive impact assessment. This is best professional practice because it systematically evaluates the potential consequences of the proposed upgrade across all relevant dimensions: technical, operational, financial, and regulatory. For IBM FileNet Content Manager v5.1, this would include assessing how the upgrade affects data integrity, access controls, audit trails, and retention schedules, all of which are critical for regulatory compliance. A thorough impact assessment ensures that all risks are identified, mitigation strategies are developed, and stakeholders are informed with accurate, data-driven insights. This proactive approach allows for informed decision-making, minimizes unforeseen issues, and demonstrates due diligence in managing a critical enterprise system, aligning with principles of good governance and risk management. Incorrect approaches analysis. Proceeding with the upgrade without a formal impact assessment is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It bypasses the necessary due diligence required to understand how the upgrade might affect compliance with data retention laws, privacy regulations, or industry-specific mandates. This could lead to accidental noncompliance, data loss, or security breaches, all of which carry severe legal and financial penalties. Ignoring stakeholder feedback entirely, even if it seems to be based on fear or resistance, is also professionally unacceptable. While the feedback may not be technically accurate, it represents genuine concerns that, if unaddressed, can lead to project delays, lack of user adoption, and damage to interdepartmental relationships. Ethically, it shows a lack of respect for the concerns of those who rely on the system. From a regulatory perspective, failing to consider user impact can indirectly lead to noncompliance if user workarounds or manual processes are introduced that circumvent established controls. Focusing solely on the technical aspects of the upgrade and neglecting the business process and user impact is another failure. While technical stability is paramount, the purpose of FileNet is to support business processes. An upgrade that disrupts these processes, even if technically sound, will likely lead to operational inefficiencies and potential noncompliance with business-defined service levels or operational procedures. This oversight can also indirectly impact regulatory compliance if critical business functions that rely on specific data handling are compromised. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a situation should adopt a structured approach. First, acknowledge and document all stakeholder feedback. Second, initiate a formal impact assessment process that includes technical experts, business process owners, and compliance officers. This assessment should specifically address how the IBM FileNet Content Manager v5.1 upgrade will affect data security, access, auditability, and retention policies in line with relevant regulations. Third, develop a clear communication plan to share the findings of the impact assessment with stakeholders, outlining potential risks, benefits, and proposed mitigation strategies. Finally, use the assessment results to make an informed decision about the upgrade timeline, scope, and necessary adjustments to ensure both business continuity and regulatory adherence. This systematic process ensures that decisions are data-driven, transparent, and defensible. Question 7. The assessment process reveals that the planned implementation of IBM FileNet Content Manager v5.1 requires a comprehensive understanding of its potential effects on existing business workflows, data security protocols, and regulatory compliance obligations. Which of the following approaches best addresses the critical need for a thorough impact assessment in this context? Option A. A review of the FileNet v5.1 feature set to identify functionalities that can be immediately leveraged without assessing their impact on current operations. Option B. A primary focus on the technical migration of existing content to the new FileNet environment with minimal consideration for business process changes. Option C. a cost-benefit analysis that prioritizes the fastest and least expensive migration path, even if it means deferring a full impact evaluation. Option D, a detailed analysis of data volume, user access patterns, integration points with other enterprise systems, and the alignment with current data governance and retention policies. Correct answer is D, a detailed analysis of data volume, user access patterns, integration points with other enterprise systems, and the alignment with current data governance and retention policies. Explanation: the assessment process reveals a critical juncture in the implementation of IBM FileNet Content Manager v5. 1. Specifically concerning the impact assessment phase. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the technical capabilities and limitations of the FileNet system with the business's operational needs and regulatory compliance obligations. A thorough impact assessment is paramount to ensure that the new system not only functions as intended, but also adheres to all relevant data governance, privacy, and retention policies. Failure to conduct a comprehensive impact assessment can lead to significant downstream issues, including data integrity breaches, non-compliance penalties, and operational disruptions. The correct approach, which involves a multifaceted analysis of data volume, user access patterns, integration points, and existing compliance frameworks, represents best professional practice. This is because it directly addresses the core requirements of a robust impact assessment. By systematically evaluating how FileNet v5.1 will affect data storage, retrieval, security, and lifecycle management, organizations can proactively identify risks and develop mitigation strategies. This aligns with the principle of responsible data stewardship and ensures that the implementation supports, rather than hinders, the organization's ability to meet its legal and regulatory obligations, such as those pertaining to data privacy and record retention. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the technical migration of data without considering the business processes and regulatory implications is professionally unacceptable. This failure represents a significant ethical and regulatory lapse. It ignores the fundamental purpose of content management systems, which is to support business operations and ensure compliance. Such an approach risks violating data privacy regulations by potentially mishandling sensitive information or failing to implement appropriate access controls. Furthermore, it could lead to non-compliance with record retention mandates, resulting in legal liabilities and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes cost reduction over a thorough impact analysis is also professionally unsound. While fiscal responsibility is important, it should not come at the expense of due diligence. Underestimating the impact of FileNet v5.1 on existing workflows, security protocols, or compliance requirements due to a desire to cut assessment costs can lead to far greater expenses down the line in the form of remediation, fines, or system failures. This demonstrates a lack of professional judgment and a failure to uphold the duty of care to the organization and its stakeholders. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured, risk-based approach. This begins with clearly defining the scope of the impact assessment, identifying all relevant stakeholders, IT, legal, compliance, business units, and cataloging all potential impacts across technical, operational, and regulatory domains. A thorough risk assessment should then be conducted, prioritizing identified risks based on their likelihood and potential severity. Finally, a detailed mitigation plan should be developed and implemented, with ongoing monitoring and review to ensure the effectiveness of the chosen strategies. This systematic process ensures that all critical aspects are considered, leading to a more successful and compliant implementation. Question 8. Cost-benefit analysis shows that upgrading to IBM FileNet Content Manager v5.1 offers significant operational efficiencies and enhanced content governance capabilities. However, the organization operates under strict U.S. financial regulations, including Sarbanes-Oxley (SOX), which mandates specific requirements for record retention, audit trails, and data integrity. Considering these regulatory constraints, which of the following approaches best balances the benefits of the upgrade with the imperative of regulatory compliance? Option A. Defer the upgrade to FileNet v5.1 until all potential regulatory implications are fully understood, which may involve extensive external legal consultation, potentially delaying the project indefinitely. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive regulatory impact assessment for each proposed FileNet v5. One feature, prioritize the implementation of compliance-critical functionalities, and then proceed with a phased rollout, including pilot testing and validation against SOX requirements before broader deployment. Option C. Focus solely on the operational efficiency benefits of FileNet v5. 1. And implement only those features that do not appear to have direct regulatory implications, leaving complex governance features for a later, unspecified date. Option D. Implement all new FileNet v5. 1 features immediately across the entire organization to maximize the return on investment and operational benefits, assuming vendor compliance features are sufficient. The correct answer is D. Implement all new FileNet v5. 1 features immediately across the entire organization to maximize the return on investment and operational benefits, assuming vendor compliance features are sufficient. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in enterprise content management, balancing the desire for advanced functionality with the practical realities of system integration and regulatory compliance. The organization is considering a significant upgrade to IBM FileNet Content Manager v5. 1. Which promises enhanced features. However, the core of the challenge lies in ensuring that any new system or configuration adheres strictly to the regulatory framework governing financial data in the United States. This includes regulations like the Sarbanes-Oxley Act (SOX) and potentially others related to data privacy and retention, which are critical for financial institutions. The professional challenge is to select an approach that not only leverages the new capabilities, but also guarantees ongoing compliance, avoiding costly penalties and reputational damage. The correct approach emphasizes a phased implementation that prioritizes compliance and risk mitigation. This involves a thorough assessment of the existing regulatory landscape and how the proposed FileNet v5 features interact with it. By conducting a pilot program and focusing on essential compliance-related functionalities first, the organization can validate the system's adherence to regulations in a controlled environment. This iterative process allows for early detection and correction of any compliance gaps before a full-scale rollout. This aligns with best professional practices for regulated industries, where demonstrating due diligence and a proactive approach to compliance is paramount. It ensures that the organization can confidently attest to its compliance posture. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with a full, unvalidated implementation of all new features without a dedicated compliance review. This is a significant regulatory failure because it bypasses the critical step of ensuring that the new system's functionalities do not inadvertently create compliance risks. For instance, features related to document deletion or access control, if not configured correctly according to SOX requirements for audit trails and record retention, could lead to severe penalties. Another incorrect approach would be to assume that the vendor's default configurations are inherently compliant. This is a failure to exercise professional due diligence. Organizations in regulated industries are ultimately responsible for their compliance, and relying solely on vendor defaults without independent verification is a breach of that responsibility. It demonstrates a lack of understanding of the specific regulatory obligations. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment framework. This begins with identifying all applicable regulations. Next, each proposed system change or feature should be mapped against these regulations to identify potential conflicts or areas requiring specific configuration. A compliance impact assessment should be conducted for each feature, prioritizing implementation based on compliance criticality, followed by phased rollouts with rigorous testing and validation, is a robust strategy. Engaging legal and compliance experts throughout the process is essential to ensure that all regulatory nuances are addressed. Question 9. Investigation of financial services firms' implementation of IBM FileNet Content Manager v5. One reveals that customer account statements, which are subject to SEC Rule 17(a)(4) retention requirements, are being manually reviewed for disposition after their initial retention period. The firm's IT department is concerned about the potential for human error leading to premature deletion of critical financial records. Which of the following approaches best addresses this regulatory risk and ensures compliance with U.S. federal regulations? Option A. Implement an automated disposition process with an IBM FileNet Content Manager that is configured with a legally compliant retention schedule ensuring records are automatically purged only after the mandated retention period has expired and no legal holds are active. Option B. Develop a separate off-system database to track the disposition status of all customer account statements, independent of the FileNet system, to provide an additional layer of oversight. Option C. Extend the retention period for all customer account statements indefinitely within FileNet to eliminate the risk of premature deletion, regardless of specific regulatory requirements. Option D. Rely on the existing manual review process, but increase the frequency of audits to catch any premature deletion, assuming the risk of error is acceptable given the current operational constraints. The correct answer is A. Implement an automated disposition process within IBM FileNet Content Manager that is configured with a legally compliant retention schedule, ensuring records are automatically purged only after the mandated retention period has expired and no legal holds are active. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge in managing sensitive customer data within a regulated financial services environment, specifically concerning the retention and disposition of electronic records. The core difficulty lies in balancing operational efficiency and business needs with strict adherence to regulatory mandates for data lifecycle management. The chosen jurisdiction for this exam is the United States, and therefore, all regulatory references must align with U.S. federal laws and guidelines applicable to financial institutions. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented process for identifying, classifying, and applying appropriate retention policies to electronic records managed by IBM FileNet Content Manager. This aligns with the principles of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act (SOX) and SEC Rule 17a-4, which mandate the preservation of financial records for specific periods and require robust systems for their management and retrieval. A well-defined disposition schedule, integrated with the content management system, ensures that records are retained for the legally required duration and then securely disposed of, preventing both premature deletion and unnecessary storage costs. This proactive and compliant approach minimizes legal and financial risks associated with data noncompliance. An incorrect approach would be to rely on ad hoc or manual methods for record disposition. This introduces a high risk of accidental deletion of records that are still subject to retention requirements, leading to potential violations of SOX and SEC regulations. Such a failure could result in significant fines, reputational damage, and legal repercussions. Another incorrect approach would be to retain all records indefinitely without a disposition policy. This not only incurs substantial storage costs, but also increases the risk of data breaches and makes it difficult to locate relevant information during audits or legal discovery, thereby failing to meet the spirit and letter of regulatory requirements for efficient record management. A third incorrect approach might involve implementing a disposition policy that does not account for legal holds. This is a critical regulatory failure, as records subject to legal holds must be preserved regardless of their scheduled disposition date, and failure to do so can lead to severe penalties for obstruction of justice. Professional decision-making in such situations requires a thorough understanding of applicable regulations, a robust risk assessment framework, and the implementation of technology solutions that support compliance. It involves establishing clear policies and procedures, ensuring adequate training for personnel, and conducting regular audits to verify compliance. The process should prioritize data integrity, security, and defensibility throughout the record lifecycle. Question 10. What factors determine the appropriate configuration of IBM FileNet Content Manager v5? 1. Retention policies and disposition workflows to ensure compliance with U.S. federal regulations governing financial record keeping and data privacy. Option A. The implementation of a single, generic retention policy across all content types to simplify management, without considering the distinct regulatory obligations for different data categories. Option B. A focus on minimizing storage costs by implementing the shortest possible retention periods for all financial records, regardless of specific regulatory mandates. Option C. The subjective judgment of the IT department regarding the perceived importance of data for future business analysis, overriding any explicit regulatory retention requirements. Option D. A comprehensive analysis of applicable U.S. federal regulations, e.g., SEC Rule 17a-4, FINRA rules, HIPAA, and their specific requirements for record retention periods, disposition methods, and auditability, directly translated into FileNet's retention schedule and workflow configurations. The correct answer is D. A comprehensive analysis of applicable U.S. federal regulations, e.g., SEC Rule 17A4, FINRA rules, HIPAA, and their specific requirements for record retention periods, disposition methods, and auditability, directly translated into FileNet's retention schedule and workflow configurations. Explanation: this scenario presents a common challenge in enterprise content management, balancing the need for efficient data retrieval with stringent regulatory compliance requirements for data retention and disposition. The professional challenge lies in interpreting and applying the IBM FileNet Content Manager v5, one's capabilities within the context of specific, often evolving, legal and industry mandates. Misinterpreting these requirements can lead to significant legal penalties, reputational damage, and operational inefficiencies. The correct approach, which involves a thorough understanding of the relevant regulatory framework and its direct mapping to FileNet's retention policies and workflows, represents best professional practice. This ensures that data is managed according to legal obligations, minimizing risk. It demonstrates a proactive and compliant strategy by leveraging the system's features to enforce regulatory mandates. This aligns with the principle of least privilege and data minimization, where applicable, ensuring data is retained only as long as legally required, and then securely disposed of. An incorrect approach that prioritizes immediate cost savings by prematurely deleting data without considering retention schedules is a direct violation of regulatory requirements. This could lead to severe penalties for noncompliance, including fines and legal action. Another incorrect approach, which involves overtaining data beyond its legal requirement, also presents risks. While seemingly safer, it increases storage costs, complicates e-discovery processes, and can inadvertently expose sensitive information for longer than necessary, potentially leading to privacy breaches or other compliance issues. A third incorrect approach, which relies solely on manual processes for retention and disposition, is highly prone to human error and is not scalable or auditable, making it a significant compliance risk. Professionals should employ a systematic decision-making process that begins with identifying all applicable regulations and industry standards. This is followed by a detailed analysis of how these regulations translate into specific retention periods, disposition rules, and access controls. Next, they must evaluate the capabilities of IBM FileNet Content Manager v5, one to implement these rules effectively and efficiently. This involves configuring retention policies, defining workflows for disposition, and establishing audit trails. Regular reviews and updates to these configurations are crucial to adapt to changes in regulations or business needs. Question 11. When evaluating the disposition of records within an IBM FileNet Content Manager v5, one object store, which approach best ensures compliance with organizational retention policies and relevant regulatory mandates for data lifecycle management? Option A. Disabling all retention policies within FileNet to streamline content management operations. Option B. Implementing automated disposition workflows within FileNet that are configured according to defined retention schedules and associated with specific document classes. Option C. Deleting physical files from the underlying file system without updating their status within the FileNet object store. Option D. Manually identifying and deleting content based on an administrator's judgment of its age and relevance. The correct answer is B. Implementing automated disposition workflows within FileNet that are configured according to defined retention schedules and associated with specific document classes. Explanation: this scenario presents a common challenge in enterprise content management, balancing the need for efficient data retrieval with stringent regulatory compliance requirements for data retention and disposition. The professional challenge lies in interpreting and applying the specific retention policies defined by the organization, which are themselves derived from regulatory mandates, to a complex and evolving content repository. Incorrectly applying these policies can lead to significant legal and financial repercussions, including fines for noncompliance, data breach liabilities, and reputational damage. The correct approach involves a systematic and policy-driven method for identifying and managing content subject to disposition. This requires a thorough understanding of the IBM FileNet Content Manager v5, one object store configuration, including the definition of retention schedules and their association with document classes and properties. By leveraging FileNet's built-in retention management features, such as retention policies and disposition workflows, an administrator can automate the process of identifying content eligible for deletion or archival according to the defined schedules. This ensures that disposition actions are performed consistently, auditable, and in strict adherence to the organization's compliance obligations. This approach is best professional practice because it directly addresses the regulatory requirement for timely and accurate data disposition, minimizing the risk of non-compliance and associated penalties. It also promotes data integrity and reduces storage costs by removing obsolete data. An incorrect approach would be to manually identify and delete content based on perceived age or relevance. This method is highly susceptible to human error, leading to the accidental deletion of critical records or the retention of data beyond its legally mandated period. Such an approach fails to provide an auditable trail of disposition actions, making it impossible to demonstrate compliance to regulators. Furthermore, it bypasses the established retention policies, which are designed to meet specific regulatory requirements, thereby creating a direct regulatory failure. Another incorrect approach would be to rely solely on the operating system's file deletion capabilities, without considering FileNet's object store metadata and retention policies. This would result in the deletion of physical files, but would not properly update the content management system's records, potentially leaving orphan metadata or incorrect disposition status within FileNet. This creates a discrepancy between the system of record and the actual data state, leading to compliance issues and data integrity problems. A third incorrect approach might involve disabling retention policies altogether to simplify management. This is a severe regulatory and ethical failure. Retention policies are not optional. They are a direct implementation of legal and regulatory obligations. Disabling them removes the safeguards designed to ensure compliance with data retention laws, exposing the organization to significant legal risks. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should begin with a comprehensive understanding of the applicable regulatory framework and the organization's internal retention policies. This understanding should then be translated into the configuration and utilization of IBM FileNet Content Manager v5. One's retention management features. Regular audits of retention policy application and disposition workflows are crucial to ensure ongoing compliance. When in doubt, consulting with legal counsel and compliance officers is essential to ensure that all actions align with regulatory requirements. Question 12. The performance metrics show that the storage utilization in the IBM FileNet Content Manager v5.1 environment is exceeding projected capacity, leading to increased operational costs. A proposal has been made to implement a new retention policy that aggressively purges all documents older than 3 years, regardless of their content type or any specific legal or regulatory holds. This policy aims to significantly reduce storage footprint and associated expenses. Option A. Implement a retention policy that aligns with all applicable legal, regulatory, and business requirements, ensuring that documents are only purged when their retention period has expired and no holds are in place. Option B. Manually review and delete documents older than 3 years, prioritizing those that appear to be less critical to business operations, to achieve a balance between cost reduction and potential compliance risks. Option C. Configure a retention policy that purges documents older than 3 years, but includes a manual override option for specific document types that might have longer retention requirements, relying on departmental managers to identify these exceptions. Option D. Immediately implement the proposed aggressive 3-year purge policy to achieve rapid cost savings and address any potential compliance issues retrospectively. Correct answer is A. Implement a retention policy that aligns with all applicable legal, regulatory, and business requirements, ensuring that documents are only purged when their retention period has expired and no holds are in place. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to data retention and compliance within a regulated industry, specifically concerning the IBM FileNet Content Manager v5.1 environment. The core difficulty lies in balancing operational efficiency and storage costs with the absolute legal and regulatory requirements for retaining specific types of content for defined periods. Misinterpreting or misapplying retention policies can lead to severe consequences, including regulatory fines, legal liabilities, and reputational damage. The need for precise configuration and ongoing monitoring of retention schedules is paramount. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the regulatory mandate for data retention. By implementing a retention policy that aligns with the specified legal and industry requirements, the organization ensures compliance. This proactive stance minimizes the risk of non-compliance penalties and demonstrates a commitment to responsible data management. Furthermore, leveraging FileNet's capabilities for automated retention policy application ensures consistency and reduces the potential for human error in managing sensitive records. This aligns with the principle of least privilege and data minimization, where applicable, by ensuring data is only retained for as long as legally or operationally necessary. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without considering retention mandates is professionally unacceptable due to direct regulatory failure. Many jurisdictions have specific laws, e.g., Sarbanes-Oxley in the U.S., GDPR in Europe, or industry-specific regulations like HIPAA for healthcare, that dictate minimum retention periods for certain financial, legal, or personal data. Deleting content prematurely to save storage space would violate these regulations, leading to significant fines and legal repercussions. Another incorrect approach that involves manual review and deletion of content based on subjective criteria is also professionally unacceptable. This method is prone to human error, inconsistency, and is highly inefficient, especially in large-scale content management systems like FileNet. It fails to provide an auditable trail of compliance and can lead to accidental deletion of records that are still subject to retention. This violates the principle of defensible deletion and proper record keeping. A third incorrect approach that relies on a best effort approach to retention, without a clearly defined and enforced policy, is also professionally unacceptable. This lack of a structured framework creates ambiguity and increases the likelihood of noncompliance. Regulatory bodies require demonstrable adherence to retention schedules, not just an intention to comply. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of all applicable legal and regulatory requirements for data retention. This includes identifying the types of content managed within FileNet and their corresponding retention periods. The next step is to translate these requirements into concrete retention policies within the FileNet system, ensuring they are accurately configured and applied. Regular audits and monitoring are crucial to verify that policies are functioning as intended and to identify any deviations. Finally, any changes to retention policies or system configurations should be documented and approved through a formal change management process, ensuring accountability and a clear audit trail. Question 13. Quality control measures reveal that a significant volume of financial transaction records, classified within IBM FileNet Content Manager v5, 1, are being retained beyond their legally mandated period according to SEC Rule 17A4, leading to increased storage costs and potential performance degradation. The current system relies on a combination of ad hoc manual reviews and a basic, inconsistently applied automated deletion process for older documents. What is the most appropriate and compliant approach to rectify this situation? Option A. Create a new, separate archive system for all financial transaction records older than their perceived retention period, leaving the existing FileNet system with only active records. Option B. Prioritize storage cost reduction by configuring FileNet to automatically delete all financial transaction records older than 5 years, regardless of specific regulatory requirements for different transaction types. Option C. Immediately disable all automated deletion processes for financial transaction records to prevent premature disposal, and rely solely on manual review by compliance officers to determine when records can be purged. Option D. Implement a comprehensive automated retention policy within FileNet that accurately maps SEC Rule 17A4 retention periods to the financial transaction record document class, ensuring automatic disposition upon expiration and maintaining detailed audit trails for all actions. The correct answer is D. Implement a comprehensive automated retention policy within FileNet that accurately maps SEC Rule 17A4 retention periods to the financial transaction record document class, ensuring automatic disposition upon expiration and maintaining detailed audit trails for all actions. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in enterprise content management, balancing the need for efficient data retrieval with the imperative of adhering to data retention policies. The professional challenge lies in interpreting and applying the IBM FileNet Content Manager v5, one's capabilities within the context of the specified regulatory framework, which, for this exam, is assumed to be U.S. federal regulations concerning financial record keeping, such as SEC Rule 17a4, and potentially HIPAA for health-related content, if applicable. Core difficulty is ensuring that automated retention policies are correctly configured and enforced to prevent accidental deletion of records that are still subject to legal hold or regulatory retention periods, while also avoiding unnecessary storage costs and performance degradation from retaining data beyond its required lifecycle. This requires a deep understanding of both the technical features of FileNet and the legal implications of data management. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves leveraging FileNet's robust retention policy management features, specifically the ability to define and apply retention schedules based on document class and metadata. This approach aligns with best professional practice by 1. Proactive configuration, ensuring that retention policies are meticulously defined and associated with the correct document classes and metadata attributes from the outset. This minimizes the risk of misclassification and subsequent improper disposition. 2. Automated enforcement, relying on FileNet's automated disposition processes to manage records according to their defined retention periods. This reduces human error and ensures consistent application of policies. 3. Auditability, utilizing FileNet's audit trails to track all actions related to record disposition, providing a verifiable history for compliance purposes. 4. Regulatory alignment, directly addressing the requirements of regulations like SEC Rule 17a4 by ensuring that records are retained for the specified periods and are not deleted prematurely. This demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to regulatory compliance. Incorrect approaches analysis, an approach that relies solely on manual review and deletion of records after their perceived retention period is professionally unacceptable due to 1. High risk of human error. Manual processes are prone to oversight, leading to the accidental deletion of records that are still legally required to be retained. This directly violates regulatory mandates for record preservation. 2. Lack of auditability. Manual deletions are difficult to track comprehensively, making it challenging to prove compliance during an audit. This creates a significant compliance gap. 3. Inefficiency and scalability issues. As the volume of content grows, manual review becomes impractical and cost-prohibitive, failing to meet the demands of a modern enterprise. 4. Ethical failure. It demonstrates a lack of commitment to responsible data stewardship and a disregard for the legal obligations associated with record keeping. An approach that prioritizes storage cost reduction by prematurely deleting records, even if automated, without a clear and verifiable mapping to regulatory retention periods, is also professionally unacceptable. This constitutes a direct violation of retention regulations, potentially leading to severe legal and financial penalties. It prioritizes short-term financial gains over long-term legal and ethical obligations. An approach that involves disabling retention policies for certain document types without a thorough legal review and documented justification is a critical failure. This bypasses the intended safeguards and exposes the organization to significant compliance risks, as it implies a deliberate disregard for established record-keeping requirements. Professional reasoning. Professionals faced with this situation should adopt a systematic decision-making process. 1. Understand the regulatory landscape. Thoroughly research and document all applicable federal and state regulations governing record retention for the specific industry and data types involved. This includes understanding the nuances of SEC Rule 17a4, HIPAA, or any other relevant mandates. 2. Map regulations to FileNet capabilities. Identify how FileNet's features, such as document classes, metadata, retention policies, and disposition workflows, can be configured to meet these regulatory requirements precisely. 3. Develop a comprehensive retention policy strategy. Design retention policies that are granular, accurate, and directly linked to the legal requirements. This includes defining retention periods, hold requirements, and disposition actions. 4. Implement and test rigorously. Deploy the configured retention policies within FileNet and conduct thorough testing to ensure they function as intended. This includes simulating various scenarios, including legal holds. 5. Establish robust auditing and monitoring. Configure FileNet's audit trails to capture all relevant actions, and regularly review these logs to ensure policy adherence and identify any anomalies. 6. Seek legal counsel. For complex or ambiguous situations, consult with legal counsel specializing in data privacy and regulatory compliance to ensure the chosen approach is legally sound. Question 14. The monitoring system demonstrates that the audit trail for financial transaction documents within IBM FileNet Content Manager is configured to capture only high-level event summaries, and these logs are stored on a network share with a standard 30-day retention policy. What is the most appropriate course of action to ensure regulatory compliance and data integrity? Option A. Maintain the current audit log configuration, but increase the frequency of manual audits to compensate for the limited log detail. Option B. Disable detailed audit logging for financial transaction documents to reduce system load and rely on periodic manual reviews of system access logs. Option C. Reconfigure FileNet Content Manager to capture detailed audit events, including user actions, timestamps, and document modifications, and implement a secure, immutable storage solution with retention periods that meet U.S. financial regulatory requirements for audit trails. Option D. Store the audit logs in a separate, less secure archive for long-term storage, assuming that detailed logs are less critical after the initial 30-day period. The correct answer is C. Reconfigure FileNet Content Manager to capture detailed audit events, including user actions, timestamps, and document modifications, and implement a secure, immutable storage solution with retention periods that meet U.S. financial regulatory requirements for audit trails. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the potential for data integrity compromise and regulatory noncompliance within a critical financial system. The core issue revolves around ensuring that audit trails, a fundamental component of financial record-keeping and regulatory adherence, are both complete and immutable. The specific jurisdiction for this exam is U.S. regulations, which heavily emphasize data integrity and auditability for financial institutions. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the integrity of the audit trail by ensuring that the FileNet Content Manager system's audit logs are configured to be tamper-evident and retained according to regulatory requirements. This aligns with U.S. regulations such as the Sarbanes-Oxley Act (SOX) and SEC Rule 17a-4, which mandate the preservation of financial records and audit trails in a manner that prevents alteration or deletion. By implementing a robust audit logging mechanism within FileNet, the organization ensures that all actions related to financial documents are recorded and can be reliably reviewed, supporting both internal controls and external audits. An incorrect approach that involves disabling or reducing the detail of audit logging would represent a significant regulatory failure. U.S. financial regulations require comprehensive audit trails to detect and prevent fraud, errors, and unauthorized access. Inadequate logging makes it impossible to reconstruct events, identify responsible parties, or prove compliance, leading to potential fines, sanctions, and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach, such as storing audit logs in a location that is not secured or retained according to regulatory retention periods, also constitutes a failure. This exposes the audit logs to potential deletion or modification, undermining their evidentiary value and violating retention requirements. Finally, an approach that relies solely on application-level logging without leveraging the inherent audit capabilities of FileNet Content Manager would be insufficient. While application logs can provide some information, they may not be as comprehensive, immutable, or easily integrated with system-wide audit requirements as the dedicated audit trails within the content management platform, failing to meet the stringent requirements for financial record integrity. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of applicable U.S. financial regulations concerning data integrity, audit trails, and record retention. This includes identifying the specific requirements for the type of financial data being managed. Next, it's crucial to assess the capabilities of the content management system, such as IBM FileNet Content Manager, to meet these regulatory demands. The decision-making process should prioritize solutions that ensure immutability, completeness, and appropriate retention of audit data. When evaluating different configurations or approaches, professionals must ask, does this configuration demonstrably support regulatory compliance and provide an irrefutable record of all relevant actions? This analytical framework helps to avoid shortcuts that may seem efficient but ultimately lead to regulatory noncompliance and increased risk. Question 15. The investigation demonstrates that a critical business process, managed by IBM FileNet Content Manager v5.1, is experiencing significant delays, impacting operational efficiency. Which of the following approaches is the most appropriate for identifying and resolving the root cause of this process optimization issue? Option A. Implement a series of user interface enhancements to streamline the perceived user interaction points, without analyzing the underlying workflow logic or content retrieval processes. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive review of FileNet audit logs, workflow history, and performance metrics to pinpoint specific workflow stages or system components contributing to the delays, and then propose targeted optimizations based on this data. Option C. Bypass standard change management procedures and directly modify workflow configurations in the production environment based on anecdotal feedback from users to expedite a resolution. Option D. Immediately reallocate additional server resources to the FileNet environment, assuming that increased capacity will resolve the performance bottleneck without further investigation. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive review of FileNet audit logs, workflow history, and performance metrics to pinpoint specific workflow stages or system components contributing to the delays, and then propose targeted optimizations based on this data. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in enterprise content management, balancing the need for efficient process execution with the imperative to maintain data integrity and compliance. The investigation highlights a potential bottleneck in a critical business process, directly impacting operational efficiency. The challenge lies in identifying the root cause of this inefficiency within the FileNet Content Manager v5.1 environment without compromising audit trails, security, or regulatory adherence. A hasty or ill-informed decision could lead to data corruption, security breaches, or non-compliance with industry-specific regulations, all of which carry significant financial and reputational risks. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic, data-driven investigation that leverages the inherent capabilities of FileNet Content Manager v5.1 for process analysis and optimization. This includes utilizing the system's audit logs, workflow tracking features, and performance monitoring tools to pinpoint specific stages or components causing delays. By analyzing workflow execution times, error rates, and resource utilization, administrators can identify bottlenecks accurately. This method aligns with best practices for IT governance and operational excellence, ensuring that any proposed optimizations are based on empirical evidence and do not introduce new risks. Furthermore, it respects the integrity of the content management system and its associated compliance requirements, such as data retention and access controls, which are paramount in regulated industries. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves making broad assumptions about the cause of the bottleneck without empirical data. This could lead to implementing changes that are ineffective or, worse, detrimental to the system's stability and security. For instance, arbitrarily increasing server resources without identifying a resource constraint would be a wasteful and potentially destabilizing action. Another incorrect approach is to bypass established change management and testing protocols. Implementing changes directly into a production environment without thorough testing in a staging environment risks introducing new errors, compromising data integrity, and violating compliance mandates that require controlled and auditable system modifications. Such actions demonstrate a disregard for established IT governance frameworks and regulatory requirements for system stability and data security. A third incorrect approach is to focus solely on front-end user interface improvements without investigating the underlying back-end process logic or content retrieval mechanisms within FileNet. This would fail to address the true root cause of the process optimization issue, leading to continued inefficiencies and potentially masking deeper systemic problems. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such scenarios should adopt a structured problem-solving methodology. This begins with clearly defining the problem and its impact. Next, gather all relevant data from the system, including logs, performance metrics, and workflow statistics. Formulate hypotheses about potential causes and design tests to validate or invalidate them. Prioritize solutions based on their potential impact, feasibility, and risk. Crucially, always adhere to established change management processes, including thorough testing and rollback plans. Maintain clear documentation throughout the process, which is essential for auditing and future reference, and ensures compliance with any relevant regulatory frameworks governing data management and system operations. Question 16. System analysis indicates that an organization is implementing IBM FileNet Content Manager v5, one to manage a diverse set of documents, each subject to different regulatory retention periods as mandated by the specified jurisdiction's laws. The organization needs to ensure that documents are retained for the legally required duration and then disposed of appropriately. Which of the following strategies best ensures compliance and efficient content lifecycle management within this regulatory framework? Option A. Implement a single, broad retention policy that applies a uniform, extended retention period to all documents to err on the side of caution, overriding any specific disposal requirements for individual document types. Option B. Rely on manual review and deletion processes for document disposition, with periodic ad hoc checks to ensure compliance with retention mandates. Option C. Develop and apply granular retention policies within FileNet, meticulously mapping each document class to its specific regulatory retention schedule and defining automated disposition actions based on these schedules. Option D. Configure retention policies based on general industry best practices for data management, without specific reference to the detailed legal requirements of the governing jurisdiction. The correct answer is A. Implement a single, broad retention policy that applies a uniform, extended retention period to all documents to err on the side of caution, overriding any specific disposal requirements for individual document types. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge in managing content lifecycle and retention policies within IBM FileNet Content Manager v5. 1. Specifically concerning the application of retention schedules to documents with varying life cycles and regulatory requirements. The core difficulty lies in ensuring compliance with the specified jurisdiction's regulations regarding data retention and disposition, while also optimizing storage and access. A robust approach requires a deep understanding of both the technical capabilities of FileNet and the legal mandates governing the data. The correct approach involves a systematic analysis of document types, their associated regulatory retention periods, and the technical implementation within FileNet's retention policies. This ensures that each document is subject to the appropriate retention schedule, preventing premature deletion that could lead to regulatory noncompliance or unnecessary long-term storage that incurs costs and risks. Best professional practice dictates a proactive and documented strategy for policy definition and application, aligning technical controls with legal obligations. This approach minimizes the risk of audits, fines, and reputational damage. An incorrect approach would be to apply a single, overarching retention policy to all documents without considering their specific regulatory life cycles. This could lead to documents being retained for longer than legally required, increasing storage costs and potential exposure, or conversely, being deleted before their mandated retention period expires, resulting in severe regulatory penalties. Another incorrect approach is to rely solely on manual processes for retention management, which is prone to human error and is not scalable for large content repositories. This bypasses the automated controls that FileNet provides for compliance. A third incorrect approach is to ignore the specific nuances of the jurisdiction's regulations, applying generic retention rules that may not align with local legal requirements. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to uphold professional responsibility. Professionals should approach such situations by first identifying all applicable regulatory frameworks for the data being managed. This involves consulting legal counsel and compliance officers. Subsequently, they must map these regulatory requirements to specific document types and business processes. The next step is to translate these mappings into configurable retention policies within IBM FileNet Content Manager v5. 1. Leveraging its features for automated application and enforcement. Regular review and auditing of these policies and their implementation are crucial to ensure ongoing compliance and adapt to any changes in regulations or business needs. Question 17. Stakeholder feedback indicates a desire for rapid deployment of new content collaboration features within IBM FileNet Content Manager v5. 1. Alongside ongoing concerns from legal regarding strict adherence to data retention policies and audit trail integrity, the marketing department is pushing for immediate access to advanced sharing functionalities to support time-sensitive campaigns, while IT is concerned about the potential impact on system performance and storage costs. Considering the regulatory framework for this exam, which approach to implementing these new features best balances compliance, user needs, and operational efficiency? Option A. Deploy all new collaboration features and functionalities immediately across the entire organization to meet the urgent demands of the marketing department, deferring detailed compliance validation until after the initial rollout. Option B. Implement a phased rollout of new collaboration features, starting with a pilot group to test functionality and compliance controls, followed by a broader deployment with ongoing monitoring and user training, ensuring that all retention and audit requirements are validated at each stage. Option C. Focus exclusively on optimizing the technical performance and storage efficiency of the existing FileNet Content Manager v5. 1 environment, delaying the introduction of any new collaboration features until a future, unspecified project. Option D. Prioritize the immediate release of advanced sharing functionalities to marketing users, creating a separate, less restricted environment for them to operate in, while the rest of the organization adheres to existing policies. The correct answer is B. Implement a phased rollout of new collaboration features, starting with a pilot group to test functionality and compliance controls, followed by a broader deployment with ongoing monitoring and user training, ensuring that all retention and audit requirements are validated at each stage. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in enterprise content management, balancing the need for robust security and compliance with the practical demands of user accessibility and efficient workflow. Stakeholders, representing different business units, have conflicting priorities. The legal department emphasizes strict adherence to retention policies and audit trails, driven by regulatory requirements. The marketing department prioritizes rapid content sharing and collaboration to meet market demands. The IT department is concerned with system performance, scalability, and the cost of storage and management. Navigating these competing interests requires a deep understanding of FileNet Content Manager's capabilities, the underlying regulatory landscape, and the business objectives of each stakeholder group. The challenge lies in finding a solution that is compliant, functional, and cost-effective without alienating key user groups. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased implementation strategy that prioritizes critical compliance requirements while gradually introducing more advanced features and user-centric enhancements. This strategy aligns with best practices for enterprise system deployments, particularly in regulated environments. It allows for thorough testing of security and retention policies in a controlled manner, ensuring that the foundational compliance framework is sound before expanding functionality. By engaging stakeholders in iterative feedback loops during each phase, the project team can address concerns, refine configurations, and build consensus. This approach minimizes the risk of non-compliance by front-loading the most critical regulatory aspects and ensures that user adoption is supported through a staged rollout of features. This aligns with the principle of security by design and compliance by design, which are paramount in regulated industries. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a Big Bang approach that attempts to deploy all features and functionalities simultaneously is professionally unacceptable. This strategy significantly increases the risk of system instability, security vulnerabilities, and compliance failures due to the complexity of managing numerous changes at once. It also overwhelms users with too many new features, leading to poor adoption and potential workarounds that bypass security controls. Prioritizing user convenience and rapid feature deployment over established security and retention policies is a critical regulatory and ethical failure. This approach directly contravenes the principles of data governance and compliance mandated by regulations. It exposes the organization to significant legal and financial penalties, reputational damage, and loss of trust from customers and regulators. Such a decision demonstrates a disregard for the organization's legal obligations and fiduciary responsibilities. Focusing solely on the technical aspects of FileNet Content Manager without adequate consideration for stakeholder needs and business workflows is also professionally deficient. While technical expertise is crucial, an effective content management solution must be aligned with business objectives and user requirements. Neglecting these aspects leads to a system that is technically sound but practically unusable, resulting in low adoption, inefficiency, and ultimately, failure to achieve the intended business value. This can also lead to shadow IT solutions being implemented by users, creating further compliance and security risks. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured, risk-based approach to implementing enterprise content management solutions. This involves 1. Thoroughly understanding the regulatory requirements applicable to the organization's industry and jurisdiction. 2. Conducting a comprehensive assessment of stakeholder needs and business processes. 3. Developing a phased implementation plan that prioritizes compliance and security. 4. Establishing clear communication channels with all stakeholders to manage expectations and gather feedback. 5. Implementing robust testing and validation procedures at each stage of the deployment. 6. Continuously monitoring system performance and compliance post-implementation. This methodical approach ensures that the solution is not only technically sound, but also compliant, user-friendly, and aligned with strategic business goals. Question 18. The efficiency study reveals that retrieving specific client financial documents from the IBM FileNet Content Manager V5.1 repository is taking an unacceptably long time, impacting client service responsiveness. Which of the following diagnostic and remediation strategies best aligns with professional best practices and regulatory expectations for financial institutions? Option A. Implement a custom script to bypass standard FileNet security checks for frequently accessed document types, thereby reducing the overhead associated with access control. Option B. Initiate a project to migrate all financial documents to a cloud-based object storage solution, as this is generally perceived as faster for large-scale data access. Option C. Immediately upgrade the server hardware and network infrastructure to their maximum specifications, assuming that increased capacity will resolve the retrieval speed issue. Option D. Conduct a detailed analysis of FileNet audit logs and performance metrics to identify specific query patterns, indexing issues, or content-based retrieval bottlenecks before proposing any remediation. The correct answer is C. Immediately upgrade the server hardware and network infrastructure to their maximum specifications, assuming that increased capacity will resolve the retrieval speed issue. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals a significant bottleneck in the document retrieval process within a financial services firm using IBM FileNet Content Manager V5.1. This scenario is professionally challenging because it directly impacts operational efficiency, client service, and potentially regulatory compliance. The firm must balance the need for speed and accessibility with the imperative to maintain data integrity and security, all within the strict confines of financial regulations. Careful judgment is required to select a solution that is both technically sound and legally compliant. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic, data-driven investigation of the root cause of the retrieval inefficiency. This involves leveraging FileNet's auditing and logging capabilities to pinpoint specific areas of performance degradation, such as slow query execution, inefficient indexing, or network latency. By analyzing these logs, the firm can identify whether the issue stems from application configuration, database performance, or infrastructure limitations. This methodical approach ensures that any proposed solution directly addresses the identified problem, minimizing the risk of implementing ineffective or costly fixes. Furthermore, this aligns with regulatory expectations for due diligence in system management and data handling, ensuring that operational changes are well justified and documented. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on increasing hardware resources without a thorough diagnostic analysis is professionally unacceptable. This fails to address the underlying cause of the inefficiency and represents a wasteful expenditure of resources. From a regulatory perspective, it demonstrates a lack of due diligence in system management and could be seen as a failure to implement cost-effective and appropriate controls for data access and processing. Another incorrect approach that involves bypassing FileNet's security protocols to expedite retrieval is ethically and regulatorily disastrous. This directly violates data protection laws and internal security policies, exposing sensitive financial information to unauthorized access and potential breaches. Such an action would lead to severe legal penalties, reputational damage, and a complete loss of client trust. It demonstrates a disregard for fundamental principles of data governance and risk management. Third incorrect approach that involves migrating to a different content management system without a comprehensive evaluation of FileNet's capabilities and the specific needs of the financial firm is also professionally unsound. This overlooks the potential for optimizing the existing FileNet environment and incurs significant migration costs and risks. It suggests a reactive rather than a proactive problem-solving strategy and may not guarantee a better outcome, potentially introducing new inefficiencies or compliance issues. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Problem identification and scoping. Clearly define the observed inefficiency and its impact. 2. Root cause analysis. Utilize system logs, performance monitoring tools, and expert consultation to identify the precise cause of the bottleneck. 3. Solution evaluation. Develop and assess potential solutions, considering technical feasibility, cost, impact on operations, and regulatory compliance. 4. Implementation and testing. Deploy the chosen solution in a controlled environment and rigorously test its effectiveness. 5. Monitoring and optimization. Continuously monitor system performance and make adjustments as needed to maintain optimal efficiency and compliance. This systematic process ensures that decisions are informed, defensible, and aligned with both business objectives and regulatory requirements. Question 19. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of unauthorized access to sensitive customer data within the FileNet Content Manager v5. One system, coupled with a high impact if such an event occurs. Which of the following strategies best mitigates this risk while adhering to professional data governance principles? Option A. Relying solely on perimeter network security measures to prevent any external access to the FileNet environment. Option B. Disabling all advanced features within FileNet Content Manager to reduce the potential attack surface, regardless of operational impact. Option C. Conducting a one-time security scan of the FileNet system upon initial deployment and assuming no further action is needed unless a breach occurs. Option D. Implementing granular access controls within FileNet Content Manager based on user roles and responsibilities, coupled with comprehensive audit logging and regular access reviews. The correct answer is D. Implementing granular access controls within FileNet Content Manager based on user roles and responsibilities, coupled with comprehensive audit logging and regular access reviews. Explanation. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of unauthorized access to sensitive customer data within the FileNet Content Manager v5. One system, coupled with a high impact if such an event occurs. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the need for data accessibility for legitimate business operations against the imperative to protect confidential information, all within the confines of regulatory compliance. The challenge lies in implementing controls that are effective without unduly hindering user productivity or incurring excessive costs. The correct approach involves a layered security strategy that leverages FileNet's native security features in conjunction with robust access control policies. This includes implementing granular permissions based on roles and responsibilities, utilizing audit trails to monitor access patterns, and employing encryption for data at rest and in transit. This approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the identified risks by minimizing the attack surface and providing mechanisms for detection and response. It aligns with general principles of data protection and security best practices, which are implicitly expected in any regulated environment, even without specific U.S. regulatory mandates being explicitly cited for this exam. The focus on proactive risk mitigation and continuous monitoring is a cornerstone of responsible information governance. An incorrect approach would be to solely rely on network-level security measures without configuring FileNet's internal security controls. This fails to acknowledge that once a user gains network access, they could potentially access sensitive data if FileNet's permissions are not properly restricted. This represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure, as it leaves a critical vulnerability unaddressed within the application itself, increasing the likelihood of a data breach and subsequent noncompliance with data privacy expectations. Another incorrect approach is to implement overly restrictive security settings that prevent legitimate users from performing their job functions, leading to workarounds that bypass security controls. This is professionally unacceptable because it creates a false sense of security while actively encouraging insecure practices. It demonstrates a lack of understanding of the operational needs of the business and can lead to increased shadow IT or data exfiltration attempts. A third incorrect approach is to neglect regular security audits and access reviews. This is a critical failure, as it allows potential security misconfigurations or unauthorized access to go undetected for extended periods. It violates the principle of accountability and proactive risk management, leaving the organization exposed to significant risks and potential regulatory scrutiny. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough risk assessment, followed by the design and implementation of a comprehensive security architecture that integrates application-level controls with broader IT security measures. This should be an iterative process, with regular reviews and updates to security policies and configurations based on evolving threats and business requirements. Professionals must prioritize a defense-in-depth strategy and ensure that security measures are practical and sustainable within the operational context. Question 20. Operational review demonstrates that a critical business process within the organization relies on the long-term storage and retrieval of archived financial transaction documents. These documents are subject to specific regulatory retention schedules that mandate their preservation for a defined period, followed by secure disposition. The current system configuration for managing these archives within IBM FileNet Content Manager v5.1 appears to be inconsistently applied, raising concerns about potential noncompliance and auditability. Which of the following approaches best addresses the need to ensure consistent, auditable, and compliant management of these archived financial documents according to their defined retention schedules? Option A. Ignore the specific retention requirements for financial transaction documents, assuming their archival nature implies indefinite preservation and focusing only on active document management. Option B. Configure IBM FileNet Content Manager v5.1's native retention policies and disposition actions to automatically enforce the defined retention schedules for these financial transaction documents, ensuring that all lifecycle events are logged in the audit trail. Option C. Develop a custom scripting solution to periodically scan the archive repository, identify documents nearing their retention expiry, and trigger manual deletion or archival processes, relying on external logs for audit purposes. Option D. Implement a manual review process where a dedicated team manually verifies each document's age against the retention schedule and initiates disposition actions based on their judgment. The correct answer is B. Configure IBM FileNet Content Manager v5.1's native retention policies and disposition actions to automatically enforce the defined retention schedules for these financial transaction documents, ensuring that all lifecycle events are logged in the audit trail. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in enterprise content management, where a critical business process relies on the integrity and accessibility of archived documents. The challenge lies in balancing the need for immediate access to potentially vital information with the long-term storage and retrieval requirements dictated by regulatory compliance and operational efficiency. Misinterpreting or misapplying retention policies can lead to significant legal repercussions, financial penalties, and operational disruptions. The professional challenge is to ensure that the chosen solution not only meets current operational needs, but also adheres strictly to the defined retention schedules and audit trail requirements, without compromising data integrity or introducing security vulnerabilities. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding of the IBM FileNet Content Manager v5.1 retention policies and their interaction with the specific business process. This includes leveraging FileNet's built-in capabilities for defining and enforcing retention schedules, such as setting retention periods, defining disposition actions, e.g., delete, archive, and ensuring that audit trails are maintained for all content lifecycle events. By configuring retention policies directly within FileNet, the system itself becomes the enforcer of compliance, minimizing manual intervention and reducing the risk of human error. This aligns with best practices for content governance, ensuring that data is managed according to legal and business requirements throughout its lifecycle. The focus on system-level enforcement through FileNet's features directly addresses the need for automated, reliable, and auditable compliance. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to rely solely on manual processes for managing document retention and disposition. This introduces a high risk of non-compliance due to human oversight, inconsistent application of policies, and the difficulty of maintaining accurate records for audit purposes. Regulatory frameworks typically require documented and auditable processes, which manual methods struggle to provide reliably. Another incorrect approach would be to implement a custom scripting solution outside of FileNet's native retention management features, without proper integration and validation. Scripting can offer flexibility. It bypasses the robust, built-in audit trails and lifecycle management capabilities of FileNet. This can lead to gaps in the audit trail, making it difficult to prove compliance during an audit, and potentially creating inconsistencies in how retention is applied across different content types or repositories. Such an approach often fails to meet the stringent requirements for data integrity and defensible disposition mandated by regulatory bodies. A third incorrect approach might involve ignoring the specific retention requirements for certain document types, assuming they are less critical. This is a direct violation of compliance mandates, as retention policies are typically applied based on legal, regulatory, or business value, not on perceived importance. Failure to adhere to defined retention schedules for any content type can result in penalties for overretention, e.g., increased storage costs, discovery risks, or underretention, e.g., legal sanctions for premature deletion. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing this situation should adopt a systematic approach. First, they must clearly understand the specific regulatory requirements and internal policies governing content retention for the business process in question. Second, they should thoroughly review the capabilities of IBM FileNet Content Manager v5.1, particularly its retention management features, to determine how these requirements can be met natively. Third, they should design and implement a solution that leverages FileNet's built-in functionalities for defining, applying, and auditing retention policies. This involves configuring retention schedules, disposition actions, and ensuring that all relevant metadata and audit trails are captured. Finally, regular testing and auditing of the implemented solution are crucial to ensure ongoing compliance and to adapt to any changes in regulatory requirements or business needs. The decision-making process should prioritize solutions that offer automated, auditable, and integrated compliance management.